Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another game of the After Hours Gaming League. My name is In Sigma Theory, and today I'm bringing to you game number 2 of Factset versus Amazon. That's right, this is the quarterfinals for the After Hours Gaming League. This game 1 has already happened. This is game 2 of Factset versus Amazon. If Amazon could pull off another win here, they get to go on towards the semifinals. If Factset can actually pick up the win here and maybe win another one, they get to go on to the semifinals themselves. But let's get into the picks and the bans into this phase. So the bans have actually already run out. Akali, Elise, and Rise banned out on the side of Factset. Lulu, Xinjiao, and Hecarim banned out for Amazon. Now it's pretty clear that Rise is actually completely focused down onto Erasion. As last game, his Rise was absolutely monstrous. And it's something they definitely do not want to deal with once again. So, Zazzy Mash, Extendo Hugs, and Dragon Ball Z picking up Misfortune, Thresh, and Fiddlesticks, it looks like. So those are pretty solid picks there. The Fiddlesticks is the one that kind of throws me off a little bit, but we have seen Dragon Ball Z do some really, really awesome stuff with Fiddle, especially here in Season 3. Bully, DJC92, AHGL, and Rolante picking up, let's see here, picking up Volibear, Darius, Graves, and Tarek. So they're going for a pretty solid bottom lane this time, going for something a little bit different here. Suja, Quaker Oats locking in Singed and Oriana for Factset, and then last but not least, Erasion locking in the Lux. So just looking at the picks across the board, Factset's going for something a little bit different this game with their composition. They're not going for the sort of early game dominance, the assassin-y styled dominance that they're going for. They're going for something a little bit more sort of team fight oriented. You know, between Singed, Oriana, and Fiddlesticks, they've got a pretty good chance of keeping people in. And looking at the combo coming out, so if you have Oriana pull everyone in, Extendo Hugs using Thresh with the ultimate to slow everyone down in that area, and then accompany that with the ultimate from Fiddlesticks and from Misfortune, that's a really, really solid team fight. And I don't know how much that Amazon's going to be able to put up with that. But looking at across the board on Amazon as well, between Darius and Graves Tarek, they've got some really solid lane bullying, the lane bullying champions as well, the potential as well. And then between Lux and Volibear, that's a lot of just control. That's a lot of just, you can't get caught out with a Volibear and a Darius, because you're going to have somebody get flung into your team, basically, and you definitely cannot stay safe and stay sort of outside of the range, because with Lux Laser, it's like a, 45-second cooldown towards the end of the game. You can pretty much constantly poke with that and just remove someone's health bar entirely, and then use someone like Volibear or Darius to just completely force a fight. And they've also got the lane control of Tarek Graves. That's a lot of burst, especially at level 2, between Tarek having a Dazzle and his Shatter, and then Graves just jumping in with his dash and with his Buckshot. You can pretty much just knock someone's health bar right out. The only bigger thing we got to point out, though, is that Amazon's actually going for a little bit more of a standard strategy, in that they're going for Exhaust on the support rather than Ignite like they did before with Leona. Now, the difference between Exhaust on Tarek and Ignite on Leona is more or less just that Leona is going straight for fights. Every time a fight happened bottom lane, they needed to pick up a kill, and they needed to pick up a huge advantage down there. So he took that Ignite to go for that lane presence instead. Now that they're going for Tarek, and they're going for something a little bit more balanced and a little bit more passive in that aspect, they're going for Exhaust, and that's gonna allow them to completely control one person of whether they're going to be able to handle something out. And that Exhaust is actually going to work out pretty well against Factset, because if you look at it, that composition that they have now, that's 4 people doing a lot of damage in an area. if you can play this out right and you can shut one or two of them down and just make them not relevant when it comes to team fights, you can actually use the exhaust and shut one of the other ones down. So you really only have one person to kind of worry about, or one or two people to really, really worry about. And when you have Volibear and Darius and Tarek alone, you could really, really control the flow of those fights. Not to mention, again, Lux, from that long range, can poke and actually get, you know, like Fiddlesticks or Oriana or Misfortune. They actually may not be able to get close enough for these fights to happen in the first place. So that's a pretty solid composition they've got out coming from both teams. And hopefully this thing doesn't, there it is once again. So we're going to go with this one. There it is. But so looking at the teams here, I mean, it's, once again, they're pretty evenly matched compositions. I mean, it's not pretty clear that one side has like a major advantage. But then again, you got to remember, these are 5v5 style teams. It's not like the normal solo queue when you look at the lane advantages. You actually have to look at how the compositions work together. And it's not so much that, you know, one composition beats another composition. It's the play style, and it's how well these players can actually communicate and work together as a team. If you have 5 people that are really good on your team, but no one works together against somebody who's, you know, that they may not be as skilled and they may not have as much play time and as much experience, but they work really, really well together, they may not be able to have it and they may not be able to compete when it comes to it. But, I mean, as we've seen, just from these games alone, not only from the entire season of Season 3 in the After Hours Gaming League, but from this, or from the last game alone, these teams are actually very, very, very solid. I gotta say it again, the bottom lane from Factset just always surprises me at how much control they have down there and how much how well they work together. Extendo Hugs and Zazzy Mash has always been an absolutely phenomenal combination down in the bottom lane. But AHGL and Rolante last game, even though they were behind, they weren't so far behind that they were just getting absolutely crushed. They actually had some really decent fights, and they set up for a lot of very solid ganks for their team. And this could actually work out in their favor in the game, but we're going to get in and introduce the champions and the characters once again. Zazzy Mash is going to be AD carry Misfortune down in the bottom lane. Extendo Hug is going to be support Thresh on that bottom side. Dragon Ball Z is going to be the Fiddlesticks jungle, and then Suja is going to be up in the top lane. This game was Singed there on that side, and Quaker Oats is going to be mid lane with Oriana. Meanwhile, on the top right corner for Amazon, Boley is going to be jungle Volibear once again. He's going to be working that one out. DJC92 down in the top lane, going to be Darius on that side. AHGL is going to be Graves on the bottom side with that 80 carry. And meanwhile, Rolante, once again, on the support is going to be Tarek, supporting that bottom lane with the Graves. And then last but not least, Warazian is going to be the Lux in the mid lane. So taking a look here, they both actually warded out the bottom side jungle, blue buff and red, respectively. And it looks like Amazon is going for an invade here, but Thresh actually spots this one out at just a pretty solid timing. Warazian actually goes in for a light binding, but Extendo Hugs actually flashes out. So the first flash is actually down in the game, and this could put Amazon in a pretty good place. And they are aware of that flash has gone down, so they could focus this one out. But I don't think they're going to go for an invade on this top side just yet. I think they're going to once again just kind of take the blue or the red buff down there on the bottom side. Now it looks like since Factset has the ward here on this side, they are going to spot this one going down. So maybe Dragon Ball Z can actually steal the red, and that side hasn't been warded from Amazon. So they may not see this one just yet. And you got to remember, Fiddlesticks, even at level 1 or level 2 with the blue buff in the jungle between Drain and either Fear or Dark Wind, he's actually got a really solid dueling power. Now, looks like Volibear picked up the red buff at level 1, but he still hasn't leveled off of it, as they did kind of share the experience there. But Zazzy Mash and Extendo Hugs actually going for a lane trade here in the mid lane. Extendo Hugs lands a hook on top of Volibear, and Oriana went down bottom lane to go 1v2. Meanwhile, Dragon Ball Z heading up top for a gank. Didn't quite get the steal on the red buff just yet. And Tarek looks like he's going for some help here into the jungle as they switch these lanes out. Now, Lux and Graves here, actually Graves here popping his cleanse to get out of the pull there from Thresh. But there is Lux and Graves here in the mid lane, so Orianna's getting a pretty good lead here over Lux. This could be pretty interesting. Rolante here getting a little bit aggressive, just trying to get some lane presence out on the mid side. Another hook lands down on top of Tarek. Takes a little bit of damage, but AHGL is going to be able to get there with a buckshot. Dragon Ball Z comes in for a gank onto the mid lane, but they're a little bit too far back onto that side. Dark Wind goes down, just trying to get a little bit of harassment out. Meanwhile, Volibear is heading towards his own blue buff. He's actually now caught up to level 2 against Fiddlesticks. But taking a look at the top lane, Suja at 11 CS to 5 CS on Darius. He actually kind of having a trouble here getting close enough to CS. Rolante popping the stun on top of Misfortune. They're going to get this one out. Meanwhile, though, Factset is taking this blue buff, though. Bully actually lands the smite, stealing the blue buff away, or actually getting his own blue buff back, as we put it. Maybe not so much stealing what's already his, but Zazimash here trying to engage on top of Rolante. Extendo Hugs lands the hook onto Thresh, and he's actually having to flash over the wall. So even though Thresh has his flash down, he's actually getting some really, really solid lane presence. A lot of that had to do with the lane swap. Putting two champions mid lane against one, even if you're behind and you don't have your summoners, you really have a good situation going. You kind of establish control of the lane very early on, and the fact that you had to send the 2 members bottom lane towards mid kind of put Lux in kind of a different position. I mean, Quaker Oats did start Cloth 5, so he fully expected to just continue to fight the duo lane. But the problem is that he's now at 9 CS to 21 from Lux. Kind of trading this one out down in the bottom lane, just kind of harassing each other. That cloth armor is actually doing pretty good at getting rid of some of the harass from Lux, but landing the abilities is just a little bit too much. Meanwhile, up at the top lane, actually, Suja gets completely focused down, and first blood goes in 5 minutes into the game. And Volibear's able to pick that one up. Alright, down at the bottom, though, Lux is pushing up pretty hard. And this is early game, so Orianna would have some trouble last hitting on these minions, especially without either blue buff or any items to sort of let her deal any extra damage. Suja's teleporting back to top lane, trying to get himself back there as quickly as possible. He actually comes back to lane with Boots of Speed, so he's got no real damage mitigation to come out from Darius. And Darius comes back with a couple of long swords, as well as the Boots of Speed, so he's going straight for a Brutalizer. He comes back, and I don't know if Stinge is going to be able to hold off on this one just yet. He's going to start to have a little bit of trouble in this laning phase. Now, they're both even in CS, 25 to 25. But the kill pickup onto Darius is making things a little bit difficult for him. Zazimash goes in for a little bit of engage, but the smoke screen from Graves able to completely force this one out. Now Zazimash at 43 CS to AHGL at 37. So he's got a little bit of a lead there. But when it comes to Thresh zoning this Graves out, Thresh actually just barely misses the hook onto Graves off to the side, and Tarek just now getting back into lane. Taking a look though, Extendo Hugs is getting really low on mana. All he really has is a Fairy Charm now, and it looks like they're gonna go back. And now that Lux is level 6, Orianna has to stay really careful, especially now that Orianna's still level 5. On to that one. Razian's gonna be able to poke and do some pretty solid damage. Bottom lane turret's going down pretty quickly here. This early into the game. Suja here trading back and forth with the Darius up at the top. He's actually gonna have to back out, because he does not want to deal with a Volibear gank once again. And everyone's just kind of farming up. But this is kind of the situation where Factset could actually turn this game around pretty quickly here. I mean, there's really only 1,000 gold lead, and normally in most situations 1,000 gold isn't really all that much of a lead. I mean, it is a big enough lead to be worried about, but it's not like a full item on one person lead. It's like a couple extra long swords of a lead, or it's a pickaxe lead, or it's a blasting wand lead. You know, it's a lot of it's extra stats that in this point of the game are very useful, but you gotta remember, we're still before 8 minutes in, so 1,000 gold at this point in the game is really, really a big deal. And now it looks like they're sending the 2v1 bot lane. They're sending Graves and Tarek up against Orianna. This is a really good positioning there by Amazon. Polar Bear's coming in for a gank onto this bottom side. Quaker Oats could get completely focused down here. AHGL just completely unloading on top of it, and Boldy picks up the kill onto the bottom lane. And now that Lux is back in the mid lane, and she does have the Chalice of Harmony, she's going to be able to actually kind of keep up into this lane, because she does have that long range ability, and she's able to farm kind of at a distance. Extendo Hugs, it's get bursted down by Lux. He's actually having to pop his lantern and just barely make it out alive, just using the shield. Meanwhile, up at the top, Suja and DJC are trading back and forth. The hemorrhage just completely bleeds away. It's Singed, though. And Darius is able to pick up another kill up in the top lane, putting him at 2-0. 57 CS against Singed at 0-2 at 46. So Amazon's starting to get another solid lead here into the game. Waragion and Rolante in the mid lane now. Tarek's actually traded up and gone straight for the mid, kind of leaving the bottom lane alone to Graves. And now that Orianna actually went for the Tear of the Goddess, didn't quite get the Zhonya's or the Seeker's arm guard, so she doesn't really have the damage mitigation to kind of handle just the Graves alone just yet. But it looks like Lux is going for the blue buff on this side. Now, we're not seeing as huge of an invade here coming out from Amazon. Last game, we saw them just absolutely control the jungle, and not just like their jungle. They had the entire jungle for the blue side warded out, and they pretty much stole every objective. Pretty much all but a few, and that wasn't really much that they could hold off onto this one. Zazimash actually having to flash and cleanse away from Graves and Tarek. Now he's going to have to be really careful. He did come back to lane with a Doran's Blade and a Vampiric Scepter, so he's got a little bit of sustain, but you got to remember, Graves picked up a BF sword, and he has his Doran's Blade, so he's got a lot of damage and a lot of trading power, especially with Rolante having the stun and the armor shatter. He can really get through quite a lot. Extendo Hug lands another hook on top of Tarek. Tarek actually turns around, just completely ignores the thresh, tries to go for a stun onto Zazimash. He has to back out. Extendo Hugs here getting focused down. Collateral damage comes out from Graves, and Extendo Hugs makes it out alive, just 200 health. He's got to stay really careful, though. Meanwhile, back at the mid lane, Waragion and Quaker Oats trying to trade this one out. Rolante tries to zone out the Misfortune. The hook lands down on top of Graves, but it's just not quite far enough to pull him in for a couple of turret shots. Meanwhile, some poke comes out from Misfortune. Fiddlesticks heads towards the bottom lane as well. The bush is the tri-bush is warded, and he has the oracles to spot this one out. So that's a really early oracles, especially on a Fiddlesticks. Now that oracles has had that change to where there's a time limit on it, it actually is kind of one of those items that hasn't fallen by the wayside, but it's really got to be an important item, and that's exactly what they need. Knowing after last game how much control that they had, how much they warded across the map, they know that that's got to be happening again. So especially with someone like Fiddlesticks, you really want the threat across the map. Even if you're not ganking constantly and you're just farming, you want them to basically think you're constantly there. And that's exactly what he's doing with picking up that oracles. As he's putting a lot of pressure across the entire side of the map. But Suja here gets focused down by Darius, pulled in on top of this side, but Bully actually flings him the other direction, and he's able to make it alive through that engagement. Alright, down to the bottom though, Zazimash and Extendo Hug still in the bottom lane. Hasn't quite traded this one out yet. Graves has come back though with a Vampiric Scepter and Boots of Speed, so he hasn't quite gotten any really big major items outside of his BF sword just yet. DJC92 just farming up the wolves. Mid lane could be in a bit of trouble here, but Dragon Ball Z here setting up for a gank on top of the bottom lane. Teleport comes in onto Suja towards Dragon, and it looks like they're going for a dive here on the bottom side. Now that is warded, so they should be able to spot this one, but Extendo Hug just gets focused down. Dragon Ball Z ults in over the wall. AHGL actually having to flash out and cleanse, but Tarek is going down. Misfortune is able to pick up a kill there, and that's going to give a kill to Graves as well, but it looks like they're going to start here and go for Dragon. Now Dragon Ball Z does not have his blue buff, and he's out of mana, so he's pretty much only got enough for this one drain. He's got to be really, really careful to hold this one out, as Volibear and Lux can steal that dragon away. Now they do have Singed and Orianna heading there as well, so they do have pretty much their entire team. Thresh just backed out, and it looks like, yeah, not having enough mana there was kind of a down point for Fiddlesticks. He didn't really want to continue to do the dragon there without full control over it. Meanwhile, Suja's heading up, try to pick up a couple of CS on the race, put some pressure onto that side. Light Binding comes out. They're kind of just trading this one into it. Meanwhile, Suja here lands the W on top of Urasion, slowing him down, getting him able to fling over the wall. And Quaker Oath just does not have the mana to hold up with it. Now, he did come back with the Seeker's Arm Guard, so now they can pretty much trade these lanes. But the problem is that Orianna doesn't have any mana regen. Meanwhile, DJZ92 just completely unloads on top of Orianna, and the Lux Laser comes out just a little bit too late. He's able to pick it up with the hemorrhage and the bleed onto that side. So it looks like Dragon Ball Z is going to get his own blue buff this time. Now, he did walk right over a ward, and they know that he hasn't taken it out yet, and he does have oracles. So they might go for something here, but I think they're just going to stay pretty safe and pick up the kill. They're in the mid side. Actually, Dragon Ball Z just completely left these two minions here. He was really worried about them coming in for to steal. I really think that's a good choice by him, just letting the golems go down and saying, you know what, I got the blue buff. I can come back for these in a minute. I just need to make sure that I don't lose this. That'd be in a pretty bad spot. But 14 minutes, 40 seconds into the game, 19,600 gold for Amazon to 16,000 gold, 16,100 for Factset. 5 kills to 1 in favor of Amazon. Extendo Hugs landing the flay to get Graves back into it, but he still quite has his death sentence. So we might be able to hook someone into this, but he's got to stay pretty careful now as Tarek just got back into lane. Dragon Ball Z setting up for a gank here on the bottom side. Now there is a ward in this bush, and they're going to spot that with an Oracles. So they are going to be able to pick that one up. And the blue buff has just now respawned, so Lux should be looking to take that one pretty quickly. As that's a pretty big advantage, though. Looking at Orianna, she really only got back to lane now with the Fiendish Codex. She doesn't have the mana regen still, so she's getting kind of starved here in the lane pretty quickly. 82 CS on Orianna to 115 on Lux. Neither of them have any kills pretty much, or assists at that. But what Orianna does kind of have behind is the death. She's actually had to spend a lot more time dead than Lux has, with 2 deaths versus 0 on Lux. So she's really had the control over the map this entire time. Looks like they were trying to set up for a dragon here, but I don't think they quite want to do it without everyone pretty much there. Suja here is actually pretty much given up his top lane turret as it has gone down, so he's not really worried about staying in lane and CSing. He's trying to get some ganks happen to make some plays and try to get the rest of his team fed enough to sort of deal with that Darius. With that Darius having 3 kills, and he has the Black Cleaver, so he's pretty much a monster at this point in the game. This is not something you want to see, as he just does a ridiculous amount of damage. Quaker Oath here taking a bit of poke from Lux on the mid side. And no one's really going for anything just yet. Fiddlesticks trying to set up for a gank on the bottom lane once again. Can't quite get close enough without getting spotted here onto the creeps, but it looks like they're going for Dragon, and he has lost his oracles, so they can't clear this ward, and I think they kind of backed out because of it. They realized, you know, we don't have vision of whether or not you have wards onto this side. But anyways, so looks like Darius is heading down as well, and this is going to leave Suja up in the top lane pretty much unchecked. And this is not where you want to be leaving a Singe. You do not want to let him get farmed. Even now, even though Singe is behind and he really only has the Catalyst, the Protector, and level 1 boots, and obviously Darius is extremely far ahead, you still do not want to let them get to this point. DJC92 setting up for a gank here in the mid lane. Didn't quite get to it early enough. Threshu tries to land a hook on top of Darius. The stun comes out onto Dragon Ball Z, gets pulled in and completely blown up. Zazimash in the backside tries to land her ult on top of the team, but it's just enough. The laser comes out from Lux, picks up a kill onto Extendo Hugs. Foley gets focused down as well. DJC92 goes down. Shutdown comes out from Misfortune. Foley gets focused down as well. A double kill comes out onto Misfortune. And Region and Rolante here in the mid lane. Now, meanwhile, down at the bottom side, Graves here was able to pick up a turret, so that was able to sort of even out the loss that they took there, actually putting them at a 5,000 or a 4,700 gold lead for Amazon. 8 kills to 3, 18 minutes, 30 seconds into the game, and they have 2 towers now, which is much more than Factset has. Now, the Dragon has not gone down yet in the game, but it's just, Factset's in just such a kind of a funny position. They got to be really careful about everything they do, and Amazon is always just kind of one step ahead. Now, this isn't to say that Factset, once again, can't turn a game around. They've got a very good team for it. One of the best teams you can have for turning a game around is an AoE-styled composition, because all you got to do is get that one perfect team fight out. You just have to get that one perfect fiddle ult. Quaker Oats getting burst down in the mid lane with that the Lux laser. But all it takes is the one perfect ult, but there it is. Dragon Ball Z comes in over the backside, lanes of fear on top of Regia, gets completely focused down, and Quaker Oats is able to pick up a kill onto the mid lane. Now he is going to have to back out, and Bully is setting up to take the top side blue buff here. He's got that timed out. Now remember, those 2 little minions did have to get delayed onto this side, so they could be waiting here for another 20 seconds, and that could be worrying. But Dragon Ball Z is heading up onto the top side, maybe through the wolves, but it looks like he's just going to clear this one out. Now Blue has respawned, so he might be handing it off to Orianna here pretty quickly. They've been waiting in this bush for a long time. Dragon Ball Z just is focused down, and DJC92 is able to pick up a really big ambush kill there in the top side jungle, and Orianna once again is not going to quite get her blue buff, putting her in just in a worse position every time. It's just, Factset is just kind of, they've lost control over the game. They can't really get it back either, because that means that they would have to get a completely good team fight, and Amazon is just not letting that happen. They're doing really good about controlling where their team is and controlling when these fights happen. AHGL actually gets pulled in on top by Extendo Hug, but little did he know, Bully comes in from the backside, slowing this entire team down. Extendo Hugs might get caught out here by Lux. The Lucis Singularity comes in. Extendo Hugs gets focused down by the laser, and the Ignite is able to pick that one off. Bully turns around at the same time, and Suja here, that living Orianna ball, tries to get the shockwave onto the team, but they just get out in time for them to dodge the shockwave. Meanwhile, Amazon here starting to work away onto the dragon, but it looks like actually they just kind of ditched the dragon and they just cleared out the wards, putting the pressure onto it. Meanwhile, up at the top, DJC92 is just completely split pushing away onto this side. And Suji here, without his teleport, actually had to run down and make sure that they didn't quite get dragon onto that one. Bully here giving the blue buff away to Lux. And Suja's not able to back out. Rolante is controlling that one once again. And Darius just pushing down this turret. He's barreling down on it. Working towards a phase next. Possibly a frozen mallet, it looks like. Extendo Hugs goes top. Trying to hold this one off. And I don't think he wants to fight this one just yet. Now, Thresh doesn't have a lot of damage, but he doesn't really want to go for anything risky, as they are just going to take this bottom side dragon and get a really, really solid lead. So we are in a much different game than we saw last time. It's 10 kills to 4, 21 minutes, 45 seconds into the game, and Amazon has a 5,000 gold lead. That's a really big lead, especially now. Now, we were talking earlier about how something as little as like 1,000 gold, especially at this point in the game, 22 minutes into the game, 1,000 gold wouldn't really be all that much. It wouldn't really be kind of a big deal. But now that it's 22 minutes into the game and it's like a 5,000 gold difference, that's an entire item. That's an Infinity Edge on your AD carry. That's a Trinity Force on your, you know, your bruiser, your caster. Extendo Hugs could get caught out here in the bottom side bush. Meanwhile, Suja up at the top trying to run away from Darius. Extendo Hugs just completely focused down. And they're going to pick up a kill down on the bottom side, establishing control once again. Meanwhile, Suja just running for his life from the top lane, possibly heading mid here for a gank. Lightning comes out trying to get on top of someone. Dragon Ball Z inside of his own jungle, taking out the race, and Volibear might be able to catch him off guard here. He's taking the long way around. He's got to be really careful though. Doesn't quite want to get caught out here. I think he saw that Volibear was there, so he just backed out, and Zazimash could be in some trouble here. Dragon Ball Z and Zazimash down in the bottom lane, just kind of holding this one off. Meanwhile, back at the mid, Quaker Oats kind of stuck here with Raysion's getting pretty low. Quaker Oats flashes forward, tries to pop the shockwave on top of Lux, but it's just not quite close enough as the fling takes him back, and Bully's able to pick up a kill there on top of that one. Mid lane is going down pretty quickly as well, although they didn't quite finish it off. So mid lane is actually still standing, so that's not the gold lead, it's not an extra bit of gold that they have yet. On to Amazon, but there goes bottom lane tower down. 35,600 gold to Amazon to 28,200. So the longer this game goes on, the more Factset seems to be having some trouble. Now there is going to be a point in this game where everyone is going to start to get even out. It's going to be about the 50 to 60 minute mark that Factset is going to start to be able to even out. And you got to remember, this is game 2 of 3. AHGL actually flashes forward and cleanses out of the fling from Singe, trying to get there as quickly as possible and safely as possible. Extendo Hugs, though, getting focused down here by Graves. Suja here in the backside trying to keep the Thresh alive. And they back out. Meanwhile, up at the top side, DJC92, once again, split pushing here pretty hard. Singe does have a teleport, though, so he could be able to hold this one off pretty quickly. Quaker Oats gets to top lane, hold this one off just in time. And it looks like mid lane is going to go down. I don't think they can do much to hold this one off. I think there's the minions enough will be able to clear this one out before anyone will get to it. So Darius trading out the jungle as well, just going for a farm and get that advantage there. Something we haven't really seen. Now, when you play something like Singed, you are going to get farmed. It's just the way Singed plays. Eventually in the game, you will get farmed, and it will happen before, you know, everyone else on your team does. The big deal though is that Darius is actually keeping ahead, and keeping ahead enough that he's a really big threat, especially to Singe. And when they catch people out in these bushes and ambushes, they're able to really get a huge lead. And there's not really much Factset can do about it, except for have everyone carry, you know, 6 to 10 wards at all times, and it wards every bush before they get into it. But looking at the ward coverage across the map, they really, Factset only has 2 wards out. They've got the Tribush down here warded, as well as the blue buff. But looking at Amazon, they've got the entire map warded once again. They've got some really solid teamwork here, and they know exactly what's going on across the map. The only thing that's really not revealed is this bottom side jungle, but if they have the top side jungle revealed, and they've got all of the lanes pushed up to the inhibitor turret except for mid lane, they don't really have to worry about what goes on in the bottom side here, because they know that they're either going to be here or they're going to be in lane. That's pretty much it. Now, they could be in the top side blue jungle, but it looks like Amazon's going for a Baron buff here, and this might go uncontested. Ping's going down on top of Baron. They should be aware of it happening just now. Suja still has his teleport, so they might be able to work something out here, but Baron's just getting absolutely melted by Amazon. Bully comes out with the Thundering Strike, trying to get a pull on to someone. DJC92 leading the front charge. Might want to be able to flash and pull someone, but his flash is down for another 35 seconds. So they might be able to force something then. Meanwhile, Lux comes back to lane with a Rabadon's Death Cap and a needlessly large rod. So she's going for Zonia's Hourglass right now, going for just a lot of damage. Now, usually what we'll see is after your Death Cap, especially for damage, we'll see a Void Staff come out pretty quickly here. But I think since no one from Factset really has any decent amount of magic resist, he doesn't really have to worry about that Void Staff just yet. So I would imagine that would come out a bit later into the game. 12 kills to 4, 27 minutes and 25 seconds into the game. 43,200 gold to 32,600. Factset is at a pretty decent deficit. Let's see here, 1,500 gold. It looks like, or 10,500. That was the number I was looking for. 10,500. It's a pretty solid lead coming out from Amazon, though. Rolante is just warding up the entire jungle. And Baron buff now is about 3/4 of the way through, or 2/3 of the way through. So they got to make sure that they make plays happen here pretty quickly. You do not want to get stuck using up your Baron buff, just farming a little bit. It's really not where you want to be. You want to force fights, and you want to make use of that, the regeneration properties and the extra advanced, or the extra attack damage, and the extra ability power. So Dragon goes down. 28 minutes into the game, it's going to go for Amazon. It's their second Dragon of the game, it looks like, as well as they got Baron and 5 turrets. Looking across the map, though, Factset has not gotten any turrets, and even top lane right now isn't really, it's only at about half health. Extendo Hugs gets pulled in by Volibear, doing a lot of damage. Suja is up at the top lane, split pushing. They got to be pretty careful onto this side. Warazion picks off the mid lane turret, and Factset is kind of stuck onto the back foot once again. Amazon here getting pretty solid. Zazimash uses his ultimate to clear out the waves. Dragon Ball Z gets flung in by Volibear. And mid lane turret taking a lot of damage. He just says, you know what, I'm going to tank through the turret hits. We're going to go straight forward. Inhibitor, mid lane inhibitor could go down. And Amazon's looking like a pretty solid lead. Suja gets hit by the light binding, held in place. He's got a little bit of health now, so he's able to hold through it. And 14 kills to 4, 29 minutes into the game, 48,100 gold on Amazon to 34,600 for Factset. And this could be a bad situation for Factset. This is not where you want to be at all, especially in this best of 3, because it's kind of riding on you for this. It's a lot of pressure. You got to remember, they not only have to win this game, but they have to win the next game to go on to the semifinals. But it looks like Amazon is having a pretty solid go at this one. Extendo Hugs lands a pull onto Darius, and Bully just goes straight in for the turret once again. It looks like they're just kind of trading this one out. Suja just now backed and has his home guard boot, so he might be able to get something onto his. Dragon Ball Z gets completely melted before his ult gets off. Extendo Hugs popping his ult to slow everyone down and flashes it out. Just barely makes it out alive, but everyone on Amazon is able to just tear through this bottom lane inhibitor. And I don't know if Factset can stop this push. Now, Baron buff still has another 20 to 30 seconds on it still, so they can make something happen with these Nexus turrets. Binding comes out, lands on top of Quaker Oats, pulling him through. Suja gets focused down as well. The Shockwave finally lands down on top of Amazon, but there's no one there to back it up from the AoE team. And it looks like they're going to have to maybe back out. Now, Dragon Ball Z is up in another 4 seconds. Quaker Oats gets hit by the light binding, just barely missing the laser there. But Extendo Hugs gets focused down once again, pulled into the team by the Darius and the Volibear. And there's super minions heading down on these Nexus turrets. Half of this team on Factset is actually down, and Quaker, Oats, Dragon Ball Z, and Zazimash, the only ones trying to hold this one alive. Now, Bully and DJC are really low. Dragon Ball Z flashes out, just barely stays alive. DJC is able to pick up 1 kill and a 2nd kill there onto the top side, and it looks like Amazon is going to go on to the semifinals for the After Hours Gaming League. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sigma Theory. Thank you for tuning in so far. This was Game 2 of the quarterfinals for Amazon versus Factset. Make sure you guys follow me and subscribe over on twitch.tv/NSigmaTheory, youtube.com/NSigmaTheory, and make sure you guys hit up the social media, facebook.com/NSigmaTheory, and you guessed it, twitter.com/NSigmaTheory. Once again, I would like to thank you all for tuning in. Do not forget to head on over to the caster voting page, as the voting has started today and it ends this Thursday. So the voting will come out for the casters on which you like and which will go on for the rest of the After Hours Gaming League. So make sure you guys head on to there and vote for your favorite and make sure they get to continue on. Thanks again for tuning in. My name is Sigma Theory, and I'll see you guys next week.